Welcome to the channel, and welcome to my review for House of the Dragon, Episode 5, We Light the Way. The episode opens in a very interesting manner, not one that you would think it would open with. It opens in the Vale, and we see that Lady Rhea Royce is going on a horseback ride to go hunting, and we see actually Daemon come up and stop her horse, and we realize that, as viewers for the first time, they're married to each other. But then we see Daemon be Daemon and spook the horse, and the horse falls over on Rhea, and she is paralyzed, dead anyways, but she makes a snide comment, "I knew you couldn't finish," and he grabs a rock, and it's implied that he smashed in her head. So that's how the episode starts. The next scene opens with Viserys, Rhaenyra, and Sir Criston Cole all traveling to Driftmark to make a deal. Basically, the king is extremely sickly on the boat, and when they reach land, he's dabbing his head with, because he's super sweaty. So he's just all in all in an uncomfortable position. When they arrive at the Hall of High Tide, too, they're not greeted with, Colaris coming out and talking to them. They're greeted by Colaris's children, and, that's kind of how the whole negotiations go. We see who's got the power and who's got the leverage, and it's not King Viserys. Viserys and Colaris come to an agreement that Rhaenyra would retain her status as heir to the throne, and that whenever she had children, they would take on the Targaryen name, even though they would normally keep the name of Velaryon. Rhaenyra and Laenor have their own discussion in which they basically tell each other that, since Laenor's gay and since Rhaenyra's interested in somebody else, that despite their marriage and despite what they were doing for the kingdom, they would still pursue their own romantic interest. And then we also get to have a scene where we meet Joffrey, who's Laenor's lover. So we have that established here, which will come into play later in the episode for sure. So on the way back to King's Landing, Rhaenyra and Sir Criston Cole have a conversation. Sir Criston Cole wants to be more than just what they are at the moment. He wants to run away with Rhaenyra so that they could be wed. But Rhaenyra says that that's a no-go because she basically has a responsibility. She is the crown, she is the kingdom, and therefore she needs to stay. She'd like things to keep going how they are going, but Sir Criston Cole basically brings up how breaking his vow of celibacy has destroyed the one thing that he earned. So we kind of get a sympathetic side to Sir Criston Cole, where it's like Rhaenyra kind of just screwed over his life because she was feeling horny one night. Whenever the ship arrives back at King's Landing, we see Alicent start to question Sir Criston Cole about the night that her father was dismissed. We see that on her end, she's trying to basically gather evidence that Daemon and her had slept together or figure out if that claim's true. But on Sir Criston Cole's end, what he's trying to do is avoid oversharing or sharing the fact that he'd actually slept with Rhaenyra. And we see in the end, their conversations collide, and he reveals first that Rhaenyra did sleep with him, to which Alicent says, that's fine, you can leave. But it shows that Rhaenyra's, not been being entirely honest or disclosing everything to Alicent, and we'll see the result of that later in the episode. The third act of the episode begins with the banquet starting to herald in the wedding between Laenor and Rhaenyra. The banquet opens with different people paying tribute. We see Lord Jason Lannister makes a tribute and takes a jab at women when he does so. And so I think we know which side of the conflict Jason's gonna be on. We also see the Valeryons enter the room, and everybody, stands and claps. And so we see that occur, and them sitting down at the table. But then we see Daemon enter the room, and it's clear that he was not invited to the banquet. But the clapping, nobody's clapping, nobody's standing up. Everybody's just kind of gasping that, oh crap, Daemon's here. Daemon doesn't have the only dramatic entrance. Alicent has a dramatic entrance when she comes in the middle of Viserys' speech in a green dress. And we're told, by secondary characters that the High Tower is lit with green fire whenever Old Town is called to war. So basically, Alicent's declaring war, or at least asserting her dominance in the court. We also see this is the first time that she refers to Rhaenyra as her stepdaughter. And once she sits down, there's an awkward pause. We have a little side conversation that goes on between Rhea Royce's family member, her cousin, who basically knows Daemon was the one who killed Rhea. And he says that in the Vale, people are punished for their crimes. And Daemon says, in the Red Keep, people are punished for their slander. And he also asserts dominance, I would say, by saying that, well, since Rhea died before they had any heirs, he basically now, all of her claims, land claims, are now his. And that after the party, he was going to fly over with his dragon and basically assert his claim on what's now his property. So we see Daemon kind of being Daemon there. The dramatic ending of the episode happens whenever everybody starts dancing and switching partners. We see that Joffrey and Laenor discover that Sir Criston Cole is the one who is, sleeping with Rhaenyra, or they can tell. Joffrey goes to let him know that Laenor and him know that Rhaenyra is, sleeping with him, and that the four of them will, can stick in this together and keep their secrets. We see that Daemon dances with Laena Velaryon. He kind of starts it more just to do it, but then, to kind of intimidate her, but we see that she's not intimidated. Then we proceed to see Rhaenyra talk to Daemon as they're dancing in Valyrian. But before their flirting can go anywhere, what ends up happening is Sir Criston Cole begins beating in the face of Joffrey. And we don't know what was said to start it. We don't know why Criston Cole snapped, but he definitely snapped because Joffrey's face ended up looking like hamburger. Criston Cole proceeds to leave after smashing in Joffrey's face to go to the weirwood tree and kill himself, but he's stopped by Alicent. And the episode ends with Rhaenyra and Laenor eloping. And whenever they do elope, they do it under the cover of darkness, and right afterwards the king, falls to the floor because how sick he is. And that's where the episode ends. It's pretty dramatic. I love in this episode and generally in the series how whenever Viserys is getting sicker and sicker and sicker every episode, around him things are getting more unstable because people's own politicking and figuring out, and maneuvering. And we see basically that, there's people on the board now who weren't before because Alicent stepped up kind of since her father's gone away. And we also see that Valeryons are stepping up too because, they've made this deal with Viserys to wed their son Laenor to Rhaenyra. And so we just see, and then we also see that Daemon, for example, has Runestone now, the right to all of Runestone. And so we see people acquiring different things, and we see kind of the table being set for the Targaryen Civil War. So it's like just a really cool, I think it's cool that it's kind of a slow burn, and we're seeing it build and build and build and build. And whenever, the situation pops off and they actually go into an all-out war, it's going to be very interesting to see where things go. I like Daemon's unpredictability, and having him start the episode with killing his own wife so that he can gain her titles is very intense. It was a very fun way to start the episode. I know that sounds macabre, but Daemon is such an interesting character because he's not necessarily good, he's not necessarily worse than anybody else, but he's just unpredictable. I like how they kind of humanized and made Sir Criston Cole more of a sympathetic character, especially because I think he was pretty one-note before, but basically you realize that he doesn't have much to his name. He just had his white cloak, and he's, soiled that by sleeping with Rhaenyra, and Rhaenyra's kind of just wanting him to be, as he said, like her whore. And so you basically can sympathize with the guy because he made one mistake and it's causing his life to kind of spiral downhill. And also, it gives a good explanation to why he would be somebody to snap when things go bad, because he's already on, at his wit's end with everything with Rhaenyra. And as always, the cinematography was phenomenal. The look of the episode was great. Things are shot is beautiful. I especially like the throne room banquet scene because they zoom in on all the different faces of people who are staring at different people, and you kind of get the impression that, this person's wanting to know what this person's thinking, or this person's wondering what that person's doing, or keeping an eye on them. So it kind of builds the suspense. It just happens naturally. And my favorite aspect of the episode was the conversation between Alicent and Sir Criston Cole, because I just thought the dialogue was so strong. So it was just a really wonderful scene, really well put together. And so that was one of my favorite scenes in the show so far. So I'd give the show a 9 out of 10. There was one scene that looked crappy because when they zoomed out on the boat, it was just like the way it lingered on that shot was annoying. But besides that, I enjoyed every aspect of the episode. I wouldn't give it a 10 out of 10 because that's reserved for nearly perfect episodes, but I definitely give this episode a 9 out of 10. So what did you think of We Light the Way? Remember to let me know down in the comments, and like and subscribe for more reviews and content.